This is Tech Me As I Am, a video series and podcast where self-love is shaking up the status quo of corporate America. We're diving into authentic stories that are creating space for you to feel seen, be vulnerable, and succeed working in the everyday. So let's be real, let's be different, and let's get courageous, y'all.
Hello, everybody. My name is Damion Wright. I'm here at the Tech Me As I Am podcast, sharing some words and insights and perspective, not answers, perspective on leadership with the Tech Me As I Am community. I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback and insights. Thank you for listening.
Hello. Welcome to Tech Me As I Am. Man, I'm so glad to have you here.
Yes.
So, for starters, we met in a cooking class.
Yes. Of all places, right?
Of all places, here at Afrotech.
Yeah.
So, first we'll start off with getting everyone a chance to get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Without this being a short monologue, I'm a global HR leader at a tech company out of the Bay Area, Intuit. As well, I have my own consulting agency. It's an HR consulting agency. And I'm live in Denver, Colorado. I have 3 kids. I'm married, the whole kit and caboodle. And I'm here at Afrotech, one of the best, moments for the culture in technology, and really excited to meet you. And I'm glad we got to connect at the cooking class. So that's a little bit about me, high level, but there is a little bit more, but I'll save it for later on.
Yeah. So first and foremost, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show is because of how authentic you were in my interaction with you.
Thank you.
And just even knowing that you were a leader and being able to be that authentic and real and genuine,
no doubt,
that means something, especially in the world that we live in.
Yes.
And seeing people that look like us being able to stand in their truth and be able to love themselves enough through all of that. I think it's really important to highlight and amplify voices that are like yours.
Yes.
So let me ask you this. What kind of got you in being able to be as authentic as you are? Have you always been that way? Did it take you time to get to that?
I think in the moment you think you're being authentic, but in retrospect, you understand that you can do things better. And let me give you a couple examples of what that journey looked like for me. Part of my story is I was a professional athlete turned, corporate employee. And one of the things that, early in my career, one of the things that I held back from was talking about my experiences as a professional athlete. And what my fear was back then is that I would get put in a box, the box of a dumb jock, right? Even though there was nothing about me that exemplified dumb, or I didn't think I was dumb. It was just what I thought others would think of me of oh, you just got this job because you were a previous professional athlete, right? And that was me not displaying authenticity in that moment, in that period of time, right? And what I learned is, if you asked me 20 some odd years later, what would I do different? I would have stood on being a professional athlete, because at the end of the day, that's the top 1% of all people who play sports. And it's a great conversation starter. It's a great show to your discipline, your the way that you work on your craft, the way that you approach problems. There's so many things that being a professional athlete go into being successful in corporate America. And I didn't display that. And so now there's so many things that I do intentionally to show up as authentic as I can, whether it's the way that we have a dialogue, the way that I treat people, the way that my interactions go. I always want to make sure they're rooted in authenticity. And it's been a journey for me. It's not like a light switch that I turned on. It has been a journey.
And I really love the fact that you kind of pointed something that you did. You had to go back in and own a version of yourself to
100%.
be able to come in and be I can't allow what I think other people think about me to allow me to operate from this because it's not you.
Yes.
It wasn't you.
Yes.
And so you going back in and unpacking that and then bringing that in with you to allow you to be the leader that you are takes a lot of courage and self-reflection.
It does.
And, I'm so glad that you're able to do that because look where you are now,
Hey, I'm trying to be somebody.
You are somebody. You are somebody. If we're talking a little about being able to bring that version of you in and accept that, what did you have to go through in order to get your mind to be like, no, this is who I am?
Oh, man, that is such a phenomenal question. What did I have to go through? I had to go through people seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself. I had to go through failure. I had to go through learning. I had to go through trial and error. And when I say trial and error, it's like I had to find myself, right, and who I am in the corporate space. And as you know, like when we talked before, I love to give examples and analogies. One of the things that that was an eye-opener for me when I started a previous job, one of the things that happened is the individual that hired me, I was preparing a presentation for him. And he said, and we were talking through it, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to get this together and I'm trying to get in your head so I can deliver it the way that you want me to. And he stopped me in my tracks. One of the best leaders I've ever had, his name is Eric McIntyre. He said, I didn't hire you to think like me.
Mic drop.
That stopped me in my tracks. That moment changed my career, and it activated something in me that I didn't even know I had in me, and that helped catapult my career.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love that moment you recognized it, you honored it, and then you took that and ran with it.
Absolutely.
You took it and ran with it. So how do you feel like, as being a leader and now truly standing in your authentic self, how do you think that's transformed the way that you do, model being a leader to others?
Again, another leader that I hold near and dear to me, his name is Sheldon Cummings. He used to be the chief diversity officer at Intuit. And he used to commend me on, some of the things that I do from a leadership perspective. And one of the things he told me, he was like, Damion, you can't manufacture authenticity. He was like, people gravitate to it and people can see right through it, right? And, when he said that to me, I was like, okay. Another thing I learned along the way was another leader told me, hey, anybody can lead by a title, but can you lead by influencing others and working through others? And I saw authenticity and leading through influence floating around. And it's like, how do I make this come together? And I think that was a real defining moment for me when you circled in your craft, your authenticity, and all these other little parts of leadership that come together. And that shapes in how you show up on a daily basis as an authentic leader and leading by the way of influence versus do as I say just because I have a title.
Right.
Yeah.
And people can feel that.
Yeah, they can feel it. But people want to work with you if you're authentic and you empower them and you trust them. All of those things, it's a complete game changer.
It is. And I think you have to start with knowing who you are first. Again, it's you at your core in order to be able to do that. It's not something, like you said, can be manufactured.
Yeah.
It is something that requires inner work within oneself to do that and do it. And they call it, soft skills, the things that you come into you can't be taught these things. You got to know how to do it. You're on your own. It's a training course of how to learn how to be authentic. You got to do the inner work to be able to get there.
Can I tell you a word that I hate? Executive presence.
Oh, and tell me why. I'm curious.
What
why?
does that even mean? Let's break that down. What does executive presence mean? Is it the way you sit? Is it the way you talk? Is it the way you speak to your pitch deck? Or is it the way you show who you are, display your craft in the way that you know it, and if it resonates with an audience, that's presence. But presence is when you walk in a room, but is executive presence different than non-executive presence? I don't know. but I don't like the word.
I don't either, because I think people can use it as a means of being biased and creating their own idea of what they think executive presence.
You stole my thunder. Like, no, seriously, executive presence is measured based on what? And it's based on what goes on in this executive room, which is primarily shaped by what? People that don't look like us. And we already know, like, it's okay. Like, I understand that there's not a lot of us that are in places or in the rooms that we're supposed to be in. But if we're talking about authenticity and self-love and all these things, if I don't show up as who I am in that room, I'm going to get chewed up and spit out. So when I think of executive presence, in the word that you don't hear me say, but when I think about that word, it's like, how do I show up in my best way that's going to captivate the audience and meet them where they're at? And they meet me where I'm at as well. So it's like a two-way street.
Yes. And you said something very dynamic, is meet them where they're at. And I always live off of this thing where it's like, you can only meet someone as far as they've met themselves.
Exactly.
And when you get in rooms with people and you know who you are, you can also detect people who, there's kind of like a barometer, if you will. You can detect the depth in which someone's gone and knowing who they are. And, you know, I don't know. I just, it's very interesting you say that, because I'm curious now. How do you know, especially in a room full of different people, executives, whoever, how far someone's met themselves when you're in a corporate setting? How do you handle that? Because that's something, obviously, I've struggled with. You know, how do you handle the different personalities when you know some don't go very far, to be honest?
You have to, that's where you have to spend the time getting to know your people. You have to understand, like, when you're leading a team, I can't coach you the way that I coach somebody else. It's not a monolith of coaching. It's not a monolith of feedback. You might say, hey, Damion, I need you to be a straight shooter with me. And then somebody else might say, look, the tough messaging is kind of hard on me. Can you lead with a series of questions so I can think through things? And, you know, granted, I'm somebody who inquires quite a bit. But, like, there's some people that just like, Damion, just give me the feedback and I'll roll with it. If I need something that's, like, to be clarified, I will ask you and I will give you a point of view. And I'm okay with that. And so you just have to, like, think of the whole picture versus the sum of the parts, because everybody's different and everybody reacts different and they're going to react to you differently.
100%. 100%. And because you know that people are different, you're taking the time, right? So you're taking the time to genuinely get to see someone, and you're not being surface.
Yes.
You are taking the time to see someone.
Yes.
And I think that is a very unique thing a lot of people don't do these days.
Yes.
And people want to be seen.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, no one takes the time to do that, you know?
Yeah. And I'm going to get a little like, so let me give you, again, an example of, like, what getting to know somebody is to me.
Yeah.
I cannot work, like, trust is built a lot of different ways, but to me, trust is having a relationship with you, right? And there's a borderline when you're a leader. There's a thin line between being a friend, a confidant, a mentor, and a leader and a boss, right? Like, it's all a very thin dotted line. But, like, I want to know, like, tell me about your background. Where did you come from? How, like, who are you as an individual? Tell me about your family dynamic. I want to know about your kids. When are their birthdays? What number sibling are you if you have siblings? Are you an only child? A lot of times, only child or people that are only children think differently than people that have siblings, you know, and that's a generalization, but, you know, you have to ask a series of questions to really, truly understand your people so they can bring the best of themselves to you at any given time.
It's kind of like, I don't know, I mean, me being a parent, it's like each individual child has their own personalities, right? It's the same thing, like a lot of the same dynamics, not calling adults children, even though we're all children at heart, to be honest. But it's basically managing, you know, the inner child of a person, to be honest. Like, that's what I look at it as.
I think that's a phenomenal analogy. Somebody who has 3 kids, my oldest daughter is definitely different than my youngest daughter. But what's so interesting is the middle daughter and the youngest, there's a lot of similarities, but they're different.
Yeah. Interesting. So you're in leadership and you've worked your way to getting to this point. What do you feel like powered you from a personal perspective to see yourself get to the space that you're in now?
That's an interesting question, and I say this in the most humble way. I always saw myself as a leader. You might say, Damion, where did that come from? That came from the way that I was brought up. I think about the words of affirmation that my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt used to tell me growing up. They'd like, Damion, you are a leader. Damion, you do belong in this room. Damion, you might be the youngest, but you're the only boy. You have a position in this family. Like, I was raised around all women. And for that reason, even though I was the youngest out of everybody, I felt like I had to lead different in different places. And so even amongst my friends, I have a very, very, very tight-knit group of friends that are all alpha males, that we're all leaders, and we all coexist amongst each other. And it's a really interesting dynamic. And the reason why I say that is, just as I said I was going to be a leader, I know how to follow too. And there's a time and place to lead, and there's a time and place to follow.
You said, again, another mic drop. Being a leader does require you to be able to follow.
Yes.
That's a part of the requirements of being a leader, because the leader knows they don't know everything.
Absolutely.
Yep. And there's a humble, a humility form of it, this humbleness that a person would have inside of themselves to be able to speak up and say those things.
Yes.
And, you said, again, saying, these are things that you told yourself and were hearing early on as a child, the upbringing.
Yes.
As people of color, we don't always come from the best of upbringings, and I want to inspire people to think about, if they are being told things, that aren't true, but, they've taken these agreements within what's maybe somebody they look up to that has said they are something that maybe they are not,
Yes.
What would you say to someone who, maybe hasn't had the opportunity to be told or poured into, maybe like someone that, your family that poured into you? What kind of advice would you give somebody?
You need to seek places of positive affirmation. And what I mean by positive affirmation, that can get kind of tricky because that can come up in a negative way or positive way. So let's enter the barrier of entry to the conversation is we know right from wrong, right? So we're in the spectrum of this is what we're doing that's right. And you're around positive people that are doing positive things, that are exuding positive energy. And I think like one way to do that is to, number one, people might see this as following, but I just see it as like understanding the lay of the land. Understanding roles and responsibilities of people that you associate yourself with and pulling things from them that they do really, really well, right? And somebody who has been a perpetual underdog his entire life, that's something that I had to do, is look at people that I admired and that are doing good things and understand what nuggets can I take away from them to become better at what I want to be better at. And that same principle that I applied in, let's say, Little League or high school athletics, I apply when I connect to leaders that are good, bad, or indifferent.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so we're going to move on to another topic before we get ready to close out here. You're someone who's a leader. You've been setting the example. You've been laying the foundations. What kind of advice would you give someone who's trying to be as aspirational as you, and seeing themselves get where you're at? What kind of things would you say a person needs to be thinking about when it comes to pouring into themselves on a personal standpoint to get there? Because it does start with self first.
100%. And I think, again, the barrier to entry is you have to understand what your capabilities are first. Not from a spot of perfection, but a spot of progress, right? So we want to make progress, not perfection, right? The other part is like when you think about who you want to be as a person, putting in those reps, I'm just trying to think of like an example of what somebody would want to be. Like, let's say somebody says they want a podcast. Like, what type of energy are you putting out in the world for people to reciprocate to you, to be like, for them to want to devote their time to sit in the seat next to you to have a conversation. And what's cool is we established that very, very quickly, right? But that only goes through practice. You have a keen eye for people that you deem as good leaders, and I have a keen eye and energy exchange for people that give off good vibes, right? And because of that, we recognized really quickly that there was a synergy here, right? And so I'm not expecting everybody to recognize that synergy real quick, but recognize where they can be at any given time and how they can pull others in, and you're giving back just as much as you're asking for.
Yes. I kind of look at it as people, when you attract people, energy attracts energy.
Absolutely.
And people are a mirror of themselves and people that they see.
Yes.
Because you can only go as far, you can only know yourself as far as you're able to go within yourself, but you also can see when someone else has done it too.
Yes.
You know, I always believe it's love at the end of the day. That's the root to everything.
Yeah.
And love, it to me, is not found, it's realized. You see it in someone else because of the way that they're showing up for themselves. And so, you know, I think that energy is love. That energy is love of oneself and seeing that me in someone else. So, you know.
You know, it's interesting. Do you mind if I interrupt real quick?
No, go ahead, please.
Talk about something that you said. Is like, you said, you know, love starts from within, right? And I think that's one thing in the community we struggle with is self-love, right? And again, that is a generalization. And I want to, again, give an example. When I was growing up, the words of affirmation that were used in my house weren't "I love you." That was very rarely said, but it was implied and it was required and it was demanded that we did love each other. We didn't even have to say it. Let's talk 20, 30 plus years later. This actually happened the other day. My youngest daughter, anytime I leave the house, "I love you, Daddy. I love you, Daddy. I love you, Daddy." Like, she'll say it like 4 times before I leave. And I had to stop the other day and say, "You know what, Danielle, I really appreciate," and she's 9 years old, "I really appreciate you telling me that you love me every time I'm leaving the house, because that's not something that Dad was exposed to when he was younger." So not only does it essentially, I don't want to say force, but it hits me into a habit.
Gives you space to be able to do it.
Yes, because that she's saying that's because she does love me, but I should be reciprocating back and telling her I love her back, because that's what she responds to. So it was really a moment in time for me to ensure that I'm telling my daughter that I love her every single time that I walk out the house.
Yes, and that's so meaningful and impactful to be able to do, especially hearing it from your parent, because those things are what trickle into adulthood.
Absolutely.
100%. So, okay. So at the end of episodes, I do 2 rapid fire questions. So one of the first ones I'm going to ask is, whenever you're feeling like either you're about to crash out.
Okay. Yesterday.
Or
Okay.
Man, look, this morning ago. But whenever you feel like you're about to crash out or you're just not in the headspace that you need to be, you know, you got to get yourself back up. What is your go-to artist or song that you play for yourself to get yourself back in that headspace?
There's a lot, and it depends on my mood.
Right.
I would say my absolute go-to is Outkast Aquemini. It's like no matter what mood I'm in, I can listen to that, and it just gives me a certain feeling.
Really?
Yeah. So call me an old head, call me what you want. Outkast Aquemini is the album of all albums to me.
Okay.
Followed by anything Kendrick Lamar.
Anything Kendrick Lamar.
Anything Kendrick. But I might have a little edge on me after that album.
that last one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last question is, because I like to give takeaways or things that people can take and use to go back and take back to, you know, instill in them. Because knowledge is power.
Yes.
What is a book that changed your life, or a podcast or something you listen to that you can give as a recommendation to help somebody who might be wanting to say, "Hey, I want to step more into my authentic self. I want to start learning in the same way that Damion started, you know, doing things."
Yeah. A very, very simple book that helped me transform the way that I think is extremely easy read is Strength Finders. And strength finders, the premise behind it is you don't focus on you're spending so much time on your weaknesses trying to get better. Whereas if you leverage your strengths and understand your weaknesses and bring others along that can help you with those opportunities, and you spend 80% of your time on your strengths, it will far outpace your weaknesses.
I love
That's
that.
something that helped me. And I'll just, again, I love examples. I'm not a big data guy, but anytime that I build a team around me, I have somebody who understands numbers and can focus on numbers and help me with like KPIs and remember to have top of mind. Because like when I'm leading, I'm thinking more about people than I am numbers, because the people are what drive the numbers. The behaviors are what drive the numbers. The behaviors drive the outcomes. So that's kind of like where I get lost.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for doing this, for being here, for sharing your wisdom.
Yes.
You're an exceptional leader, and Intuit is lucky to have you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Until next time, y'all, thanks so much for tuning in.